One Stormy Journey. It was a dark night. The snow, mixed with the wind, wouldn't let me open my eyes. Squinting, I tried to walk, only able to see a few steps ahead. I had been walking for hours. The snow under my feet had thickened, and every step became harder. The storm, the snow, my soaked boots, and my fingers aching from the cold. It was as if they had all conspired to stop me. The wind howled, and snowflakes lashed my face. But I had no intention of turning back. I had been on the road for 2 days. I had crossed hills and rivers. My goal was clear, to reach the town of Tepiter. I couldn't give up now. After long hours, the storm began to ease, and the snow slowed down. As visibility improved, my steps quickened. I was scanning the surroundings carefully, searching for a light. And then, I saw it. A faint flicker of light in the distance. My heart started to race. I began to run. Reaching that light became my only desire. To the inn. By the fireplace, a table was surrounded by a few people engrossed in heated conversation. The innkeeper brought drinks to the customers at the opposite table and returned to his counter. Glancing around, he counted 3 by the fire and 2 at the other table. He mumbled to himself, "Where are those bustling days? Same faces, same coins every day. Wish summer would come already so my poor pouch could be full." As he arranged his counter, the door suddenly burst open with a loud noise. The storm flooded in along with the snow. The entire inn fell into silence. A silhouette stood in the doorway, barely visible in the storm. When the door closed, a slightly large man of average height became visible. The stranger walked slowly to the table on the right side of the door. Everyone in the inn watched him cautiously. The innkeeper, however, was beaming. The stranger dropped the bag from his back under the table and sat down, glancing around subtly. Near the fire sat a large man with a surly, thin one to his right and a chubby one to his left. The innkeeper rushed over. "Welcome. What would you like? Hot meal? Drink? A place to stay?" The stranger replied briefly, "Hot meal and a dry cloth. Do you have any walnuts?" "Walnuts?" the innkeeper asked in surprise. "Yes." "Walnuts?" the innkeeper shrugged. "I'll check. Might be a few left in the cellar." The stranger placed 2 swords from his waist onto the table. Then, from his bag, he took out a long object wrapped in wet cloth and set it in front of him. Meanwhile, he kept an eye on 2 men seated across from him, one elderly and bearded, the other middle-aged. Curious eyes were fixed on him. Soon the innkeeper returned, placing a hot meal and a dry cloth on the table. "There are 5 walnuts left, but I can bring hazelnuts too. If you'd like, that'll do." "Give me the walnuts and bring 3 or 4 handfuls of hazelnuts," the stranger said. He cracked one of the walnuts in his palm and made a strange clicking sound with his mouth. Click, click. Just then, something darted out from his bag. As it leaped onto the table, those watching gasped. "It's a squirrel," someone whispered. The squirrel eagerly grabbed the walnut from the man's hand and climbed onto his shoulder. The stranger calmly began eating. Outside, the storm still howled. When he finished eating, he called to the innkeeper, "I need a bed for the night. I don't have a room, but there's an extra bed. How much for 1 night?" "With the meal, for gold, all right," he said, handing over the coins. 3. Room and New Encounters. The innkeeper led the stranger up the wooden stairs by the fireplace. A long corridor stretched ahead, lined with rooms on both sides. "Are all these rooms really full?" The stranger asked. "No, but winter came early." Some of the roofs leak. Water gets inside. The innkeeper stopped at the last room on the right. This is the one. Is anyone else staying here? You must have seen him downstairs. An old man. He's been here for 2 days. Seems like a good man. Won't be any trouble, the stranger nodded. He hung his bag by the bed and sat down. The innkeeper added, "Sleep well," and closed the door. The stranger drew his swords and began wiping them down with a dry cloth. He also stroked the squirrel affectionately. He was about to lie down when the squirrel suddenly jumped, startling him. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. The sound stopped just outside the door. The stranger focused. The door creaked open slowly. A pair of weary eyes peered through. Then the door opened wider and an old man entered. "So, you're my new roommate, huh?" said the elder. "What a gloomy night, isn't it?" The stranger nodded silently. "My name is Sorig. What's yours, lad?" "Baki. Pleasure to meet you." "Baki." Sorig sat on the bed across from Baki's. "So, where do you come from? Where are you headed at this hour?" "I've been on the road for 7 days. I'm heading to Tepiter. I'm heading to the city of Daskazin. I've been here 2 days, resting. I plan to leave tomorrow, but this weather..." It stopped me in my tracks. Baki nodded, showing he was listening. When Sorig paused, Baki spoke up. "What brings an old man like you to a remote inn in the mountains? The road is rough, stony. How did you even get here?" Sorig chuckled softly. "I'm a carpenter by trade. My life has been spent shaping wood and carving trees." He took a deep, wistful breath. "I've always wanted to be a traveler, but I've lived 60 years in Daskazin without ever stepping outside its walls. Then something happened 6 years ago. I told myself, I don't want to die without seeing the world. That desire. It pushed me out the door." Baki nodded slowly. Sorig glanced at the small creature on Baki's shoulder, this little squirrel. "Is he yours?" "Yes." "Does he have a name?" Baki stroked the squirrel's head gently. "His name is Şilob." "Şilob? Strange name. Does it mean something?" "Honestly, I'm not sure." Sorig smiled. "He's adorable, and he clearly loves you." "I love him too," Baki said. "He might be a squirrel, but he's more loyal than most people I've met. Our fates are tied together." "What about your story? It feels like it was left unfinished. What kept you from leaving Daskazin before?" "Oh, I did leave," said Sorig. "Then what made you go back?" "Well, actually, would you like to hear a story, lad? If you'd like to tell it, I'd love to listen." "All right, then. It's not very long. I'll tell it in parts." 4. Twilight Silence. Sorig had just finished speaking when footsteps echoed in the corridor. Sorig turned his head toward the door. "I suppose the others are heading to their rooms." "It's getting late." Baki nodded slightly. "You're right." Double quotes. As the footsteps faded, silence once again settled over the inn. Sorig, feeling the weight of fatigue on his shoulders, continued. "If you like, I can tell you the rest of my story tomorrow. You must be tired too." "You've traveled far," Baki responded with understanding. "Whatever you prefer." Sorig closed his eyes and whispered, "With this storm, it looks like we'll still be here tomorrow. We can talk plenty then." He lay down slowly. The warmth from the fireplace contrasted sharply with the howling wind outside. A sense of comfort filled the room, but that comfort would not last long. 5. The Mysterious Scream. Night had deepened. All the guests in the inn had fallen asleep. Outside, the storm raged louder than ever. The wind howled, and the snow lashed against the windows like furious waves. The snow had already piled up to knee height, and then a thunderous crash, followed by a blood-curdling scream, and the terrified neigh of a horse. Baki leapt from his bed in an instant. He grabbed the dagger beside him. Şilob, trembling in fear, climbed onto his shoulder. Şorig also sat up abruptly. What was that? Baki's eyes narrowed, scanning the darkness. I don't know. It came from the stables, I think. They stared at each other in shock. Footsteps echoed down the corridor. Baki turned to Şorig. Stay here. I'll check. He slowly cracked the door open. Spotting the innkeeper and two other men in the corridor, he opened it fully. What was that noise? Baki asked, his tone sharp. I don't know. It sounded like the stable boy nod. It came from the stables, the innkeeper answered, visibly shaken. Let's go check, Baki said, already stepping forward. The innkeeper and the two men followed. Şorig joined them in silence. They descended the wooden stairs. The inn was eerily quiet, but tension hung in the air like thick fog. The storm outside screamed louder, as if something beyond the snow was calling. The innkeeper pointed to the outer door. Out there, the moment they stepped outside, the cold hit them like a slap. Wind howled like wolves, and snow stung their faces like sharp blades. When they reached the stables, they saw the door completely shattered. Wooden planks scattered on the ground. Inside, only darkness. Baki took a cautious step forward. Eyes fixed on the black void, he gripped his dagger tighter. 6. The stable. Baki entered first, the others following silently behind. Inside, the stable was pitch dark. One of the men who came with the innkeeper extended a shaking hand and held a lantern forward. As the light pierced the darkness, they froze in place. The stable was drenched in blood. Blood puddles stained the ground. In the center, a man lay motionless, his body soaked in blood. Dead horses lay around him, eyes open, lifeless. Baki cautiously stepped closer to the man. As he scanned the scene, the innkeeper collapsed to his knees beside the corpse, gently shaking it. Nod. Nod. Please. He whimpered. Who is this? Baki asked. The innkeeper, sobbing, answered. He's the stable boy. My stable boy. Baki checked for a pulse. Nothing. No breath. His eyes were empty. He can't hear you, Baki said. He's dead. The innkeeper's sobs grew louder. Baki gently moved him away from the body and looked around. This had to be the work of a bear. Or maybe a pack of wolves. Şorig's voice came from the shadows. Could a bear really break down a door like that? What else could it be? Baki replied. Then his gaze fell on the corpse again. The man's chest was torn open. Baki knelt beside him, brushed away some blood, and peered closer. Something caught his eye. The heart was missing. He took the lantern and checked the horses. One by one, all dead. All with torn open chests, all heartless. Baki returned to the group. This wasn't done by an animal. Then what was it? Şorig asked. A human, maybe. The innkeeper, his voice shaking, stammered. In this weather, at this hour, there's no one else around but us. One of the men added. Even on good days, people barely pass through here. There's no other explanation. Baki muttered. No animal does this. The hearts are gone. What could do such a thing? Şorig asked again. Baki paused. A person. Or, before he could finish, the second man spoke up. A witch. Baki gave him a sharp look. I didn't say which, he muttered, lips curling. I don't know. The stable fell silent. An oppressive, uneasy quiet filled the air. Eyes darted, scanning shadows. The storm was outside, but the real darkness had already entered. 7. From the darkness. Fear had taken root inside them. Thinking clearly became nearly impossible. Baki held his dagger in one hand, sword in the other, eyes scanning the dark corners of the stable. The same questions echoed in everyone's minds. What did this end? Is it still here? Then it happened. The sound of breaking glass echoed from the inn, and a human scream piercing. Ra ripped through the storm and reached the stable. They all turned toward the inn. One of the men screamed in panic. Istos. That was Istos. Why didn't he come with us? Baki demanded. He was too drunk, the man stammered. I didn't wake him. Baki didn't hesitate. Run. Now. He and the man raced back to the inn through the blizzard. Once inside, Baki grabbed the man by the arm. Wait, what's your name? Tira, the man replied. Shaken, I'm Baki. Tira, do you know how to use a sword? A little. Yes, good, Baki said, drawing one of his swords and handing it to him. Take this, Tira nodded. We need to hurry to Istos. They ran up the stairs, heading for the third room on the left. Baki kicked the door open and froze. Tira, right behind him, also stopped in his tracks. In the middle of the room was a creature, hunched, massive, with jet black skin and crimson eyes that glowed with an unnatural light. Istos lay on the floor, and the creature was tearing out his heart with long, clawed fingers. A T-turn. It had seen them. With terrifying speed, it lunged at Tira. As it tackled him, Baki dove to the side. Rolling onto the bed, the struggle spilled into the corridor. Baki sprang up and ran after them. Sword raised, he struck the creature, blade sinking deep. It roared. The creature dropped Tira and slashed at Baki, hurling him down the hall. He crashed into the far wall, smashing through it. The beast escaped through the broken wall into the stormy night. Sorig, the innkeeper, and another man arrived just in time to see Baki and Tira on the floor. They had seen the creature. And fear had doubled. Baki was wounded, but alive. He crawled over to Tira. Tira, are you okay? He slashed my chest. That bastard, Tira groaned. With the others' help, they lifted him up. Then Baki approached the shattered wall. When he looked down, he realized how high they were. No human could survive a jump from here. This thing, it's strong and fast. He tried to peer into the darkness, snow swirling around. But deep down, he knew. It's coming back. Turning to the innkeeper, the lower level of the inn. The walls are made of stone, right? Yes, the innkeeper nodded. Good. We're going down. All of them moved downstairs. They barricaded the doors and windows, reinforced the entrances. The innkeeper applied ointment to Tira's wounds. The pain lessened, if only slightly. In the cold silence of the night, they waited. Not just for the storm to pass, but for the unknown to return. 8. The story in the silence. The cold silence of the night echoed within the stone walls of the inn's lower level. Outside, the storm still howled, but inside, the most deafening sound was fear. Baki gently stroked his frightened squirrel eyelid, trying to calm him. But in truth, his own mind was spinning with questions. He finally voiced one of them. I'm sure I stabbed it. Deep. But there was no blood. None at all. He looked around at the others. The innkeeper, clearly shaken, asked, Are you sure you struck it? Tira interjected, his tone firm. Yes, I saw it. If he hadn't stabbed it, I'd be dead right now. Sorig looked thoughtful. Baki, that's strange. Are you absolutely sure there was no blood? Yes, Baki nodded. One of the other men confirmed. I didn't see any either. He's telling the truth. Sorig's eyes narrowed, drifting into memory. I've heard of something like this before. Yes, this creature. Baki leaned forward, focused. What have you heard? Tell us. You remember I told you I was a traveler, right? Yes. Well then, let me tell you something. Maybe, just maybe, it holds the answer we need. A way to defeat this thing. Everyone turned toward him. The fire crackled softly in the hearth, and Sorig began to speak. 9. The Curse of BHD. Have any of you ever heard of the city of Barsuk? One of the men replied, I've heard of it, but I've never been. Years ago, I passed through it, Sorig began. And then even farther south beyond, where the soil no longer turns brown, where nothing green grows, where the sun almost never sets, a place where living is equal to dying. A vast desert where the sand stretches endlessly, like a sea. And deep in that desert lies a village more like a hamlet than a true town. Its name is BHD. They say BHD is named after a mountain hidden somewhere in that endless sea of sand. A mountain no one has truly seen. I went there once, with a caravan that travels there once every 15 days. And in that village, I met someone named Costa. He told me a story. One I've never forgotten. Sorig's voice grew heavier, and his gaze turned inward. Costa vowed to find BHD Mountain. He believed it existed, and that a sacred treasure lay within. He gathered a massive caravan. 20 camels carried water. 15 more carried food. 100 people joined him. They traveled for days. Countless sunrises and sunsets. But the mountain never appeared. Water supplies dwindled. Food ran out. The others wanted to turn back, but Costa refused. In the end, only 8 people stayed with him. After 5 more days, thirst and hunger overwhelmed them. Some fell. Some walked until they collapsed. Costa and 6 others remained. And then, on the horizon, it appeared. A towering mountain, cutting through the sky. Costa rubbed his eyes 3 times, thinking it a mirage. But each time it remained. There you are, he cried. You who pierced the desert with your might. You who stole my heart through legend. I have found you. He and his companions ran toward it. It was real. Rivers flowed at its base. Fruit trees grew on its slopes. Bees nested in the rocks, and their honey ran in golden streams. For 3 days they ate, drank, and rested. Then Costa revealed his true purpose. You stood by me, my friends. And now you'll understand why. I seek not gold or silver, but a different treasure, one hidden within this mountain. But don't worry, there's more than enough gold for all of you. One final step remains. After that, it's ours. They were overjoyed. They had crossed the impassable desert. What could possibly stop them now? At dawn, they climbed the mountain's lower slopes. Eventually, they found a massive cave. They lit torches and ventured inside. They walked for a full day before reaching a vast chamber. Costa knew it was the first trial, but said nothing, touched nothing, he warned. Everything you see is fake. One man saw a mountain of gold, but resisted. Another saw chests of jewels, and tried to ignore them. But then a single ring rolled to his feet. He picked it up and shouted, "They're real. The treasure is real." The others rushed toward the gold. Costa yelled for them to stop, but they were lost in greed, and that's when they came, the Gez-ur, hundreds, thousands. Black as night, with eyes like fire and teeth like blades, Costa tried to fight, but his sword did nothing. In desperation, He struck one with a torch. The creature screamed a piercing, soul-shattering cry. It was the fire. Fire was their weakness. Costa was the only one who escaped. He wandered the desert, mad, lost. When he returned to the village, his mind was broken. All he could say was, "You may cross the endless desert, but you'll fall to a Gez-ur. If you want to defeat it, you must marry the fire of hell." 10. A spark of hope. Silence fell again. The only sound now was the crackling of the fire and the wind outside, still howling faintly, but in everyone's minds, only one word echoed. Gez-ur Baki turned his eyes toward the flickering shadows. "We have no other choice. We have to try .._. The edge of darkness, fear, and death. A single possibility had been born, and from that, a spark of hope. 11. The end that came with fire. Baki placed Şilob on his shoulder and stood up. "All right, everyone. Time to get to work." He turned to the innkeeper. "What do you have that burns?" "I have some oil I use for lanterns and torches," the innkeeper replied. "Good. Bring it all." The innkeeper returned shortly, carrying all the oil he had. Baki asked for clay jugs to divide it up. Şorig watched, worry in his eyes. "Let's hope this works. Or this inn will be our grave." Tira struggled to sit up. "I won't let that happen." He looked at the other man. "Tira, Kamir, help me up." Kamir grabbed his arm and helped him stand. Baki and the innkeeper filled the jugs, handing one to each person. "Everyone gets one jug and one torch. Remember, throw the oil first, then light it up." Şorig nodded. "Smart plan. But we don't know when it will come," Kamir murmured. "Maybe it won't." "No," Baki said firmly. "It will. I can feel it." "We need to be ready," Tira agreed. "Yeah, he's right. It's coming." They waited, each clutching their weapons. The night dragged on. Hours passed. Nothing happened. Fatigue overtook them. First to fall asleep was Tira, weakened by his injuries. Then one by one, the others drifted off. Baki fought to stay awake, but exhaustion from days of travel won. Only Şilob remained vigilant. Outside, the storm raged. But within it, new sounds emerged. Footsteps. Heavy. Wet. Unnatural. Only Şilob heard them. The squirrel darted over and scratched at Baki's face, squeaking. Baki woke, and then... wood. The door shook. Everyone jolted awake as the door shattered. The Gez-ur entered. This time, they saw it in full. A long neck, face like a bat, glowing red eyes, elongated claws, and legs bent the wrong way. Kamir collapsed to his knees in terror. "No, please don't." The creature slashed Kamir's chest. Baki charged with a torch but was knocked away. Crashing near the counter, the creature tore Kamir's heart out, then turned to Baki. The innkeeper threw a jug but missed. In panic, he couldn't aim. Şorig leapt between Baki and the creature with his torch. The creature hesitated, then lunged at the innkeeper. A few swift blows and the innkeeper was dead. Şilob screeched, circling Baki's head, calling out. Şorig dragged Baki upright, whispering, "Come on, lad, get up." But Baki couldn't move. The creature approached. Şilob leapt. He latched onto the beast's head, biting and clawing, darting around its eyes. Baki, gathering his final strength, grabbed a jug and threw it. Oil splashed across the creature. Then click, click. Şilob jumped clear. Baki hurled the torch. Whoosh. The creature went up in flames. It screamed a sound that shattered bone and soul alike. And then, silence. The beast burned to ash. Şorig knelt beside Baki, applying the innkeeper's ointment to his wound all around them. Bodies only 3 remained: Sorig, Tira, Baki, and the squirrel Ilib. The storm had passed. The snow had stopped. As dawn broke, the 3 survivors began walking toward Daskison. And from that night forward, the old and west of the Kozdak River was never the same. Some say, on certain stormy nights, the faint chatter of a squirrel can still be heard from its charred stones, and if you listen closely, a whisper might reach your ear. They defeated it, but every flame leaves behind a shadow. This was not the end of Baki's story, but it was the first tale, the first legend written with the blade of a traveler and the claws of a friend.